Have you ever looked at a pond or a fish tank and wondered how the fish breathe? It's a great question. Just like us, fish need oxygen to live, but they don't have lungs to breathe the air we do. Instead, they get their oxygen right out of the water. This oxygen is invisible. You can't see it, but it's there, mixed in among the water molecules. It's a special kind of oxygen called dissolved oxygen. It's like when sugar dissolves in your tea. You can't see the sugar anymore, but you know it's there, because the tea tastes sweet. The oxygen is there, ready for the fish to use. So, how does this magical, invisible oxygen get into the water in the first place? One of the main ways is from the air right above it. Think about a lake or an ocean. The surface of the water is always touching the air. Where the air meets the water, a fantastic exchange happens. Oxygen from the atmosphere moves into the water. This process is helped along by things like wind and waves. When the wind blows and creates ripples or big waves, it mixes the water up. This mixing action helps pull more oxygen from the air down into the water, spreading it around for all the underwater creatures. Another amazing source of oxygen comes from plants that live underwater. You've probably seen green plants in a fish tank or a pond. These aren't just for decoration. Just like plants on land, aquatic plants perform a process called photosynthesis. They use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to make their own food. As a wonderful side effect of this process, they release oxygen. This oxygen bubbles out from their leaves directly into the water. So, during the day, when the sun is shining, these underwater plants are like little oxygen factories, constantly pumping fresh oxygen into their watery home. This dissolved oxygen is super important for almost everything that lives in the water. Fish use their gills to pull this oxygen out of the water so they can breathe. Little critters like shrimp and snails need it too. Even the tiny microscopic bacteria that help clean the water by breaking down waste need oxygen to do their job properly. Without enough dissolved oxygen, a pond or a lake wouldn't be a healthy home. It would be like trying to live in a room with no fresh air. The amount of oxygen is a key sign of how healthy a body of water is. Now, let's do a thought experiment. Imagine we take a big glass jar and fill it with water from a healthy pond. This water is full of that wonderful dissolved oxygen we just talked about. We can see some tiny bubbles and maybe a little bit of green stuff floating around. At this moment, the water is a happy home. It has everything it needs. Oxygen is still getting in from the air touching the surface of the water inside our jar. It's an open system, which is a sciencey way of saying that things can get in and out. Air can get in, and other gases can get out. But what happens when we seal the jar? Let's say we screw the lid on really tight. Suddenly, we've changed the rules. The jar is no longer an open system, it's a closed system. This is a very important change. The water inside is now completely cut off from the outside world. Most importantly, it's cut off from its main supply of fresh air. No more wind can create ripples on its surface. No more oxygen from the vast atmosphere can dissolve into the water. The amount of oxygen inside that jar is now finite. That means there's a limited supply. Once the lid is on, the clock starts ticking. The oxygen that was already dissolved in the water is all that's available. Think of it like being in a sealed room with only one tank of air. You can breathe for a while, but eventually that air is going to run out. In our sealed jar, any living thing that uses oxygen will start to consume the limited supply. Every breath a fish takes, every bit of decomposition done by bacteria, uses up a little bit of that precious trapped oxygen. Nothing new is coming in to replace it. The exchange with the air has stopped completely. This creates a serious problem. As the oxygen is used up, the concentration of dissolved oxygen in the water starts to drop. At the same time, the creatures that are breathing are releasing carbon dioxide as a waste product. So, while the oxygen level goes down, the carbon dioxide level goes up. The entire chemical balance of the water inside the jar begins to change. It slowly becomes a place that is much harder for oxygen-breathing life to survive in. The fresh, healthy pond water is transforming into something quite different, all because we put a lid on it. So, what does this mean for any living things we might have trapped inside our sealed jar? Let's imagine we placed a small fish in the jar before we closed it. At first, the fish might seem perfectly fine. It will swim around, exploring its new glass home, breathing normally using its gills. It is using up the dissolved oxygen that was already in the water. For a little while, there is enough to keep it going. The fish has no idea that its supply is limited, and that no fresh oxygen is coming to the rescue. It's just living its life moment by moment. But as time goes on, things get very difficult for the fish. As it continues to breathe, the oxygen level in the water drops lower and lower. You might notice the fish starting to act differently. It might swim to the very top of the jar, near the lid, trying to find more oxygen where it would normally be most plentiful. It might start gasping at the surface, even though there's no fresh air to be found there. This is a sign of stress. The fish is struggling to get the oxygen it needs to survive. Its body can't function properly without it, and it's a very dangerous situation. Now, what if we put a water plant in the jar with the fish? This makes things more interesting. During the day, if the jar is in the sunlight, the plant will do photosynthesis. It will take in the carbon dioxide the fish is breathing out and release fresh oxygen. This can help replace some of the oxygen the fish is using. For a while, the fish and the plant can create a tiny, balanced ecosystem. The plant provides oxygen for the fish, and the fish provides carbon dioxide for the plant. This is a beautiful example of symbiosis. However, this delicate balance is very hard to maintain in a small sealed jar. What happens at night? When there's no light, the plant stops producing oxygen. In fact, just like the fish, the plant also uses up a little bit of oxygen to stay alive in a process called respiration. So at night, both the fish and the plant are consuming the limited oxygen supply. If the plant isn't big enough, or doesn't get enough light during the day to produce a lot of oxygen, the level will still drop dangerously low, putting the fish at risk. Eventually, the system will likely fail. This simple experiment with a sealed jar teaches us a huge lesson about life on Earth. Oxygen is absolutely essential for most living things, whether they live on land or in water. It's the fuel that powers our bodies. Without a constant supply, life as we know it cannot continue. The fish in our jar struggled because its connection to the planet's vast oxygen supply, the atmosphere, was cut off. It shows us that even a small, seemingly simple creature needs to be part of a much larger system to survive. Everything is connected. You can even see some of these principles at home, safely. Try this. Take 2 clear jars and fill them with tap water. Leave them out for a day to let the chlorine evaporate. Then, add a few sprigs of a water plant, like Elodea, to each jar. Seal one jar tightly and leave the other one open. Place them both in a sunny spot. After a few days, look closely. You might see tiny oxygen bubbles collecting on the leaves of the plant in both jars. But over a week, you may notice the plant in the sealed jar doesn't look as healthy as the one in the open jar. It's a small-scale version of our experiment. The big takeaway here is about responsibility and understanding the needs of living creatures. People sometimes buy tiny sealed ecosystems with a shrimp or plant inside. While the science is neat, these are often very difficult environments for the animals. Our experiment shows just how quickly things can go wrong in a closed system. It's a powerful reminder that living things need space, they need resources, and they need a connection to the world around them. A sealed jar is usually not a happy, permanent home. It's a science lesson in a bottle. So, the next time you see a pond, a river, or the ocean, think about that invisible, life-giving oxygen. Think about how it gets there from the air and from the plants. And remember the lesson of the sealed jar. Life needs to breathe. All living things are part of a big, beautiful, and interconnected system. By understanding how something as simple as oxygen works, we can better appreciate the delicate balance of life all around us, and be better caretakers of our planet and all its amazing creatures. Consider that.